All right, Hotep, everybody. How's everybody doing today? Okay, we're finally on. Hey, this is Michael Imhotep, founder of the African History Network, host of the African History Network show. I'm a talk show host, researcher, lecturer, and writer. So today is Wednesday, December 11th, 2019, and we're live. Everybody share this broadcast on your Facebook page and on YouTube. Invite your friends to tune in. So on my Sunday night show, the African History Network show that I do Sundays, 9 p.m. to 11 p.m. Eastern Standard Time on 9 10 a.m. the Superstation here in Detroit, and then we broadcast here on Facebook Live. I ran out of time this past Sunday because I was dealing with the impeachment hearings so much. But I was supposed to talk about this topic. There was a study that came out in the past couple of weeks that dealt with, it was a study that dealt with African American women and white women. It was actually a study that dealt with the usage of permanent hair dyes and chemical relaxers, and the link between permanent hair dyes and chemical relaxers and higher incidences of breast cancer. And white women were in the study and African American women were in the study. And this study found that African American women are at least 6 times more likely to get breast cancer from using permanent hair dyes and chemical relaxers. Okay, and this was a new study. I know NPR.org had an article about this from December 4th, 2019. A lot of news outlets, Essence Magazine, NBC News, a lot of news outlets had articles about this, BusinessInsider.com, CNN. Okay, so I want to dig deeper into this study. And something important to understand with this is dealing with endocrine disruptors, and how chemicals can disrupt the endocrine system, okay, or endocrine system. And this is the system that deals with your glands, and glands producing hormones, your pituitary gland, your various glands, and adrenal glands, things like this in the body. Your testicles as far as men, ovaries as far as women. But there have been a lot of studies that deal with how chemicals can throw off your endocrine system, and it throws off your hormonal balance, your hormonal levels. Okay, this plays into that. Also, there is a case out of Washington, D.C. that I've been following for the past few years, and this deals with fish in the Potomac River, male fish in the Potomac River, who have, over the past few years, they've been observed growing female eggs. And the U.S. Geological Survey has been studying this for a number of years. And they talk about what they believe is the cause of this, and they talk about how chemicals are flushed down people's toilets, and how various chemicals from all different types of medications, different types of things, how various chemicals find their way into the river water supply, and it's impacting these fish. Okay, I'm going to share some articles because I've been following that story for a number of years. Okay, and a lot of people don't know this. All right, so everybody share this broadcast on your Facebook page. African American Business Owners, post the name of your business here on the thread of the broadcast. We'll let you know how you can advertise with the African History Network. All right, so many hair products contain endocrine disrupting compounds and carcinogens, which are cancer-causing agents, potentially relevant to breast cancer. So products used predominantly by African American women may contain more hormonally active compounds. In a national prospective cohort study, this study examined the association between hair dye and chemical relaxer straightener, chemical relaxer or straighteners. They examined the usage of these and breast cancer risk by ethnicity. So the name of this study is called Sister Study. Sister Study. And there were 46,709 women who participated in this study. They were ages 35 to 74. They enrolled in this study between the years of 2003 and 2009. And all of these women also had a sister, okay, a biological sister, with breast cancer. But everyone in the study was breast cancer free themselves. Okay, so it's a study of 46,709 women between ages of 35 to 74, and they enrolled between the years 2003 to 2009. And every one of these women in this study had a sister, a biological sister, who had breast cancer. Okay, but the women in this study were all breast cancer free. So researchers found that women who used permanent hair dye or chemical straighteners were at a higher risk of developing breast cancer. The study found, when we look at permanent hair dye, they found that the women had a 7% higher, white women had a 7% higher risk of developing breast cancer from using permanent hair dye, but African American women had a 45% higher risk of developing breast cancer from using permanent hair dye. Okay, so when we look at the impact that hair relaxers had, and then also when we talk about hair dye as well, when they looked at heavy usage of hair dye, the risk increased. When it comes to heavy usage of hair dye, at least once every 5 to 8 weeks, the study showed an 8% increase for white women and a 60% increase for African American women. Okay, and that's just dealing with hair dye. Okay, when we look at hair relaxers, and I'll go to that portion here also. Just give you a minute here. When we look at hair relaxers, we saw a even larger increase when it came to African American women. Okay, and let me see, let me find that here because I've got a bunch of notes on this. All right, so when it came to chemical relaxers, both African American women and white women who used hair straighteners were about 30% more likely to develop breast cancer than those who did not use hair straighteners. However, African American women are more likely to use hair straighteners, with about 75% of African American women in the study reporting they use hair straighteners. Okay, so we saw that in this study, we saw that hair relaxers, okay, had a pretty much the same impact on African American women and white women as far as more likely to develop breast cancer. But African American women are much more likely to use hair straighteners. Okay, once again, when it came to chemical straighteners, the risk did not vary by race. Both African American and white women who used hair straighteners were about 30% more likely to develop breast cancer than those who did not use hair straighteners. But African American women are about 75% more likely to use hair straighteners, the study reported. So NPR.org, National Public Radio, had a really, really good article dealing with this that I'm going to go through. And then I'm going to connect this to endocrine disruptors. Okay? And also the studies from the U.S. Geological Survey that deals with male fish in the Potomac River developing female eggs. Because all of this stuff is interconnected, interrelated. Okay? And then the other thing that is important to watch out for is that more and more, you know, so just like in Michigan, last week I think it was, recreational marijuana became legal to sell it, okay, and to buy it in Michigan, right? And we see more and more states legalizing marijuana, even though it's still a Schedule I drug on the federal level. It's still illegal on the federal level for not for recreational purposes, right? But the other thing that a lot of people don't talk about is how there are studies that show that marijuana usage is linked to increases in unhealthy sperm in men. Okay, so and I saw some articles dealing with this recently. So like ScienceDaily.com, for instance. Well, let me see. LiveScience.com, February 6, 2019. Smoking marijuana linked to, let me see, hold on. I'll pull up some articles dealing with that. But I've seen some articles dealing with the link between an increase in unhealthy sperm and marijuana usage, right? So, okay, ScienceDaily.com has an article here from December 19, 2018. Exposure to cannabis alters the genetic profile of sperm. All right. So, as marijuana should be legal because it should have never been made illegal in 1937. When you study Harry J. Anslinger, who was the first chairman of the National Narcotics Commission, it was made illegal because of racism. And he actually testified in Congress. He said that white women crave black men sexually when they're high on marijuana. This is his actual testimony. And he said that marijuana was used by Mexicans, Filipinos, Negroes. The problem was who was using marijuana. As long as white people were using marijuana, it was not a problem. When non-white people started using marijuana, now it became a problem. Okay, so there was a campaign. In this country, like movies like Reefer Madness, articles that Harry J. Anslinger wrote for national magazines. There was a campaign to change the way people thought about cannabis or hemp, and to relabel it as marijuana. And marijuana was actually a Spanish term. So you had Mexican Americans coming into this country, and the hatred that a lot of people had towards Mexican Americans became associated with the term marijuana, which was a Spanish term, because that's not what they were calling it. They were calling it cannabis or hemp. All right, so Timeline.com had an article dealing with the history of why marijuana became illegal in this country. All right, so at the same time, you know, I'm leery. Marijuana should be legal, but that don't mean we should use it. I understand for medicinal purposes. I'm talking about for recreational use. Marijuana should be legal, just like alcohol should be legal, because prohibition didn't work for alcohol. But that don't mean we should use it to get drunk. Okay, so if we complain about liquor stores in our community, and we complain that the liquor stores are there to keep us drunk, then what do we think the weed dispensaries are there in the community to do? I'm just asking, if we complain about the fast food restaurants in the community, and the McDonald's and the Burger Kings and the pizza places and things like this in the Coney Islands, and we say, okay, we complain about that, and we say that leads to obesity, and then we complain about the liquor stores in the community, and they say they're there to keep us drunk, then what do we think the weed dispensaries are designed to do? All right. That's not what I was going to talk about, but it's all connected, okay? All right, so let's look at this first article here from NPR.org, National Public Radio. Hair dyes and straighteners linked to higher cancer risk, especially for black women, December 4, 2019. Hair dyes and straighteners linked to higher cancer risk, especially for black women, all right? And I'm going to post a link here to this article also. Okay, so everybody check this out. And this is not an attack on African Americans. I should have said this from the start. Okay, this is not an attack on African American women who dye their hair blonde or straighten their hair. You know, even though I think we should really be promoting natural hairstyles more. This is why Miss South Africa winning Miss Universe, I think, is so monumental. Okay, not that we need validation from Europeans, but she's dark. She's a beautiful dark skinned sister, and she has natural hair. Okay, Zosie Beanie, Zosie Beanie Tunzi. Okay, that's why it's so monumental. All right, so let's look at this article here. We just posted the link. New research raises concern about the safety of permanent hair dye and chemical hair straighteners, especially among African American women. The study was published in the International Journal of Cancer. The International Journal of Cancer. The study is called Sister Study. Previous research in animals has found links between certain chemicals in hair dye and straighteners and cancer. Okay, previous research in animals has found links between certain chemicals in hair dye and hair straighteners and cancer. But findings from other studies on the association between hair dyes and straighteners and cancer have been inconsistent. This large prospective study provides firmer evidence of a link. Okay, so when you read more about the study, they say that their findings suggest this. Okay, they say that more research needs to be done, and they can't be 100% conclusive, but in their findings, but they see a relationship. All right. So researchers analyzed data from an ongoing study called the Sister Study, as I stated before, looking at medical records and lifestyle surveys from 46,709 women between the ages of 35 and 74. Women answered questions about their use or usage of hair dyes and hair straighteners. While earlier studies on hair dye and cancer risk included mostly white women, this new study includes 9% African American women. Okay, so 9% of the 49,709 of the 46,709 women, 9% were African American women. All right, now researchers found that women who use permanent hair dye or chemical straighteners were at a higher risk of developing breast cancer. Dr. Alexandra White was the author of this study. And she said, quote, the association was notably higher among black women. Okay, and she is an investigator with the National Institute of Environmental Health Sciences, and they study environmental risk factors for breast cancer. Now, after 8 years of follow-up, Dr. Alexandra White found permanent hair dye was associated with about a 7% higher risk of developing breast cancer among white women, whereas in African American women that risk was about 45%. Okay, permanent hair dye. Now, in the study, they talk about how they don't see this real increase in the risk of breast cancer in using temporary hair dye. They make a distinction between temporary hair dye and permanent hair dye. All right, so the risk was even higher among African American women who dyed their hair frequently, every 1 to 2 months. Every 1 to 2 months. And when they look at heavy usage of hair dye, they explained it as at least once every 5 to 8 weeks. All right. Now, researchers don't know which ingredients in the products might be of concern. The study did not look at the specific ingredients in the products women were using, only at whether they had used the product and whether they developed breast cancer. All women in the study were already at a high risk for breast cancer since they had a sister who had breast cancer. And once again, it's called Sister Study. So this family history put them at increased risk, but does not influence the findings of this analysis, since all the women in the study had this same family history, but only some of them used hair dye and hair straighteners. Now, researchers note that in the United States, breast cancer incidence remains high for all women and appears to be increasing for non-Hispanic African American women, who also are more likely to be diagnosed with more aggressive forms of breast cancer and more likely to die from it. Now, I remember one of the first people I heard talking about the relationship, and this was dealing with fibroids, okay? The relationship between hair straighteners, hair relaxers, and fibroids was Dick Gregory. Now, back in 2012, there was a study that came out, and blackdoctor.org had an article about this. BET.com picked up this article from blackdoctor.org. This was from February 23rd, 2012. New study links relaxers to fibroids. New study links relaxers to fibroids. The American Journal of Epidemiology releases a study linking chemical hair relaxers to uterine fibroids, as well as early puberty in young girls. Okay, I'm going to give you the link to this article. I'm just going to jump to this article for a minute. Then we'll go back to the other one from NPR.org. A new study in the American Journal of Epidemiology has linked hair relaxers to uterine fibroids as well as early puberty in young girls. Scientists followed more than 23,000 premenopausal African American women from 1997 to 2009 and found that the 2 to 3 times higher rate of fibroids among African American women may be linked to chemical exposure through scalp lesions and burns resulting from hair relaxers. So once again, here we see this. We see African American women are more likely to have uterine fibroids, and we see a relationship between that and chemical hair relaxers. So women who got their first menstrual period before the age of 10 years old were also more likely to have uterine fibroids. And early menstruation may result from hair products black girls are using, according to a separate study published in the Annals of Epidemiology in 2011. Now, 300 African American, African Caribbean, Hispanic, and white women in New York City were studied. The women's first menstrual period varied anywhere from ages 8 to age 19, but African American women who were more likely to use hair straighteners and hair relaxing oils also reached they had their first menstrual period earlier than other racial ethnic groups. Okay, so we see them entering into puberty. We see many African American women entering into puberty earlier than other women of other racial and ethnic groups. While so far there is only an association rather than a cause and effect relationship between hair relaxers, fibroid tumors, and puberty, many experts have been quick to point out that the hair care industry is not regulated by the FDA, the Food and Drug Administration, meaning there's no definite way to fully know just how harmful standard black hair care products really are. Now, so this is reporting about the study that came out in 2012. All right, so it's going to be, that's 7 years ago. It's going to be interesting to find out what other studies have come out. And I've probably seen them. I just don't come to mind exactly right now. What did they find between 2019 and 2012, 2019? Now, fibroids are tumors that grow in the uterus. They are benign, which means they are not cancerous and are made up of muscle fibers. Fibroids can be as small as a pea and grow as large as a melon. It is estimated that 20 to 50% of women have fibroids or will have them. Now, fibroids at some time in their lives. They are rare in women under the age of 20. most common in women in their 30s and 40s and tend to shrink after menopause. All right, so check out this article and check out the links in here as well, because there's a link to another study. But this was from February 2012. Okay, so when we look at these studies and more information coming out, there's more information and more information coming out about the linkage between chemical hair relaxers and various types of cancer. In this study, the sister study, they're looking at breast cancer. All right, so let's go back to the article from NPR.org, National Public Radio. They had a really, I looked at a number of different articles on this. They had a really good article. Okay, so researchers note that in the United States, breast cancer incidence remains high for all women and appears to be increasing for non-Hispanic African American women, who are also more likely to be diagnosed with more aggressive forms of breast cancer and more likely to die from it. Hair products contain more than 5,000 chemicals. Hair products contain more than 5,000 chemicals, according to researchers, including those with mutagenic, M-U-T-A-G-E-N-I-C, mutagenic, and endocrine disrupting properties, such as aromatic amines, A-M-I-N-E-S, which can raise cancer risk, according to Dr. Alexandra White. When it came to chemical hair straighteners, risk did not vary by race. Both black and white women who used hair straighteners were about 30% more likely to develop breast cancer than those who did not use hair straighteners. However, African American women are more likely to use hair straighteners, with about 75% of the African American women in the study reporting that they straighten their hair. So Dr. Alexandra White said, quote, "For the chemical straighteners, one of the big concerns there is formaldehyde." Okay, for the chemical straighteners, one of the big concerns there is formaldehyde, which is a known carcinogen. Carcinogens, once again, are cancer-causing agents. She noted that in the early 2000s, just before this study began, Brazilian keratin treatments came on the market. This new treatment, commonly called a Brazilian blowout, contains formaldehyde, while earlier hair straightening treatments did not contain formaldehyde. Now, the study finds, the sister study, the study's findings should be understood in context, said Dr. Otis Brawley, who's a medical oncologist with Johns Hopkins University. The actual risk found for use of these hair treatments is quite low, he said, especially compared with other known carcinogens like tobacco or radiation. Quote, he said, "This is a very weak signal that these things might be causing cancer in the population," end quote, he says. Much more research is needed to know for sure how risky these products are. For example, long-term clinical trials with a control group and placebo would be more definitive, but this type of study, quote, would be difficult if not impossible to do, end quote. All right. Now, he went on to say, sometimes science just cannot give us the answers that we want it to give us. Now, in the meantime, Dr. Brawley says there are certain lifestyle factors. That have a stronger evidence of a link to cancer and are more important for women to focus on. He said it is for certain that obesity, consuming too many calories, and lack of exercise is a risk factor for breast cancer, a definite risk factor. Okay, he said. He says while the findings of the study only add up to a perhaps when it comes to risk. All right, so he's making a distinction between a definite connection between cancer, like obesity, and a suggestion between the relationship between chemical hair relaxers and permanent hair dyes and breast cancer. Okay. He went on to say, I think it's important for women, particularly African American women, not to panic every time a study comes out, but it should raise questions for our primary care providers. Well, when you look at some other studies, hair relaxers should raise concerns for African American women. Okay. According to, let me see here, let me back up here. Okay, Dr. Doris Brown, who is a medical oncologist and former president of the National Medical Association, suggests women start a conversation with their doctor about their risk for breast cancer. This is Dr. Doris Brown. She said, I think it's important for women, particularly African American women, not to panic every time a study comes out, but it should raise questions for our primary care providers. For example, Dr. Brown suggests doctors and patients discuss the use of hair products like hair dyes and hair straighteners, along with other aspects of a social history, okay, like alcohol consumption, smoking, obesity, and living near environmental contaminants. According to Dr. Doris Brown, the key lesson from this study for both doctors and patients is that, quote, when we are aware of a new association of breast cancer risk, we need to increase our surveillance, okay, end quote, to include this potential risk factor in doctor-patient discussions. For both races, there was no increased risk for women who use semi-permanent or temporary hair dyes, semi-permanent or temporary hair dyes, the kind that eventually wash out with shampooing. To reduce risk, researcher Dr. Alexandra White, who was actually one of the researchers involved in the study, says women might want to choose these products instead, okay? Temporary, or semi-permanent or temporary hair dyes, okay? So check out this article. This is one of the better ones I saw on this, because I looked at a number of different articles dealing with this study. This is from NPR.org, National Public Radio. All right. I'm going to go to the actual study here in just a second. Let me give you this link here from NPR.org. All right, how's everybody doing? Share this broadcast on your Facebook page. Invite your friends to tune in also. Also, if you like this type of information, you can donate to the African History Network, paypal.me/the AHN show. PayPal.me/the AHN show. It helps us keep doing the research, stay on the air, broadcast our Sunday night show, helps us pay the bills, etc. Okay, PayPal.me/the AHN show, or at our website, AfricanHistoryNetwork.com. All right, African American business owners, post the name of your business here on the thread of the broadcast. We'll let you know how you can advertise with the African History Network. We have a current promotion going on right now. Buy 1 month, get 2 months free. Email us at customerservice@AfricanHistoryNetwork.com, customerservice@AfricanHistoryNetwork.com for more information. 2020 is coming up. A lot of people want to get their financial house in order. Certified financial planner Martisha Patterson can definitely help you with that. She has 19 years of experience in the industry. She is a certified financial planner, and she is helping people just like you focus on achieving their financial goals. Okay, if you want to put together a financial plan, get a budget, you want to increase your investments, savings, save for retirement, etc., she can definitely help you with that. Visit her website, PattersonPlans17.com, PattersonPlans17.com. For more information, and let her know you found out about this from the African History Network. All right, I want to go to I want to look at these articles dealing with the fish in the Potomac River and endocrine disruptors. Also, that I'll give you the link here to the International Journal of Cancer. They have the study here for the sister study: hair dye and chemical straightener use and breast cancer risk in a large population of black and white women. Okay, and the researchers involved in this study, Dr. Carolyn E. Eberle, Eberle, Dale Sandler, Dr. Kyla Taylor, and Dr. Alexandra White. All right. So we'll post this link here also to this. This is the link to the actual study. You can check it out because I went through and I was reading some of the actual study. They talk about endocrine disruptors here in the study as well. If we look at I want to look at a couple articles here dealing with the fish because I had to go in my archives and find these. One is from Washington Post. Let's look at the year. August 3rd, 2014. Another is from National Geographic from 2016. Okay, let's look at the one from 2014 first. Name of this article: As More Male Bass, B-A-S-S, bass fish, as more male bass switch sex, a strange fish story expands. This is from the Health and Science section of the Washington Post from August 3rd, 2014. Now, I've read a number of articles dealing with this year after year after year after year because the U.S. Geological Survey is studying this, okay? And a lot of people don't know about this. In the article, it says, at first she was surprised, then she was disturbed. Now she's a little alarmed. Each time a different batch of male fish with eggs in their testes shows up in the Chesapeake Bay watershed, Vicky Blazer's eyebrows arch a bit higher. In the latest study, now this article is from 2014. In the latest study, smallmouth bass and white suckerfish captured at 16 sites in the Delaware, Ohio, and Susquehanna rivers in Pennsylvania are crossed over into a category called Intersex, I-N-T-E-R-S-E-X, Intersex, which is an organism with two genders. Okay, so let me just say from the outset, all right, this may go outside the circumference of some people's awareness. Just because you never heard it before, disagree with it, or don't like it, does not mean it's not true. Just means you have to do some research to understand what I'm talking about. Because of changes in policies of social media platforms, this is not hate speech or anything like this. Okay, I'm dealing with scientific surveys that have been taking place for years, monitoring bass fish in the Potomac River, in Ohio, things like this. Okay, so I don't want people to misunderstand what I'm saying. All right, so let's continue. Quote, I did not expect to find it quite as widespread, Vicky Blazer said. Now, Vicky Blazer is a biologist with the U.S. Geological Survey, and she studies fish. Since 2003, U.S. Geological Survey scientists have discovered male smallmouth and largemouth bass fish with immature eggs in several areas of the Potomac River, including near the Blue Plains Advanced Wastewater Treatment Plant in the district. This article came out in 2014. They've been studying this since 2003. Because I would see articles, now I've been following this for a few years, because I would see articles year after year after year, and they talk about how the problem's getting worse. So when this article came out in 2014, they had been studying this for 11 years at that point. I don't know what the deal is with it now. The previous studies detected abnormal levels of compounds from chemicals such as herbicides and veterinary pharmaceuticals from farms. So pharmaceuticals used to treat animals on farms, and from sewage system overflows near smallmouth bass nesting areas in the Potomac. Those endocrine disrupting chemicals, just like they talked about endocrine disrupting chemicals in the study that just came out, sister study, showing a possible a suggested link between chemical hair relaxers, and permanent hair dyes and breast cancer. They talked about endocrine disrupting chemicals. Here in this study from the U.S. Geological Survey, they said those endocrine disrupting chemicals throw off functions that regulate hormones and the reproductive system. In the newest findings, now this is from 2014, in the newest findings at one polluted site in the Susquehanna near Hershey, Pennsylvania, 100% of male smallmouth bass that were sampled had eggs. Now, for those who don't understand fish anatomy, male fish are not supposed to have eggs. I mean, I know people think, bunny rabbits lay chicken eggs. Okay? Male fish are not supposed to have eggs. These are not male eggs. These are female eggs that male fish have. They ain't supposed to happen. The article goes on to say, with the mutant bass, this is Vicki Blazer of the U.S. Geological Survey. She's a biologist. She said, with the mutant bass, B-A-S-S, quote, we keep seeing a correlation with the percent of agriculture in the watershed where we conduct a study, end quote. The fish that were dissected and analyzed by researchers swam downstream from farms and animal feed operations, where rains washed manure filled with various chemicals and hormones into streams and rivers. People, this is from 2015. This study's from 2014. But see, the interesting thing is, once again, when I first found out about this maybe in 2014, 2013. So I went back and started reading articles going back to about 2003, 2004, where they started studying this and writing about it. And basically each year they said the problem's getting worse. Now, how many of y'all have heard about this? It was a familiar finding after the first intersex bass were found in the Potomac. The U.S. Fish and Wildlife Service made a remarkable discovery and follow-up research at Blue Plains, Plains, Blue Plains. Quote, we found female germ cells in the testes of 82% to 100% of the male smallmouth bass and in 23% of the males from largemouth bass, the agency said, the U.S. Fish and Wildlife Service said. It is a problem that extends well beyond the Chesapeake Bay region, which includes Washington, D.C., District of Columbia, Virginia, Maryland, Delaware, West Virginia, and Pennsylvania. Intersex bass fish were found by the U.S. Geological Survey in the Columbia, Colorado, and Mississippi River basins in 2009. Scientists have yet to identify a single chemical responsible for causing male fish to become part female. This is back in maybe they found it since then. I don't know. I got to go research that. I got to get up to speed on this. Okay, I don't know because I've been covering so much stuff. I don't know. Okay, you see, I'm covering impeachment every day. All right, scientists have yet to identify a single chemical responsible for causing male fish to become part female. I hope they find it soon. And I don't eat fish. I don't eat any meat. Okay, people, I've been vegetarian damn near 12 years. I haven't had meat in 12 years. Okay. In urban areas, now check this out. Follow this. In urban areas, estrogen products are often flushed down drains, contaminating water. Estrogen, female sex hormone, right? In rural areas, natural animal hormones, much of it estrogen, is excreted in manure, which is spread on fields and washed into water by rain. So when a lot of times when people consume animals, a lot of times the animals they consume are female animals. So you eat chickens, not roosters. Chickens are females. So you eat cows, not bulls. Cows are female. So when you consume the animal, you consume the hormones, the sex hormones in the animal as well. Quote, I think it's a complex mixture of chemicals, end quote, said Vicki Blazer, biologist with the U.S. Geological Survey, who authored the study with 9 researchers. The findings published in Environmental Monitoring and Assessment coincided with a new report, new in 2014, a new report from the Environmental Integrity Project that says there is far more nitrogen and phosphorus pollution in the Chesapeake Bay than states and the Environmental Protection Agency have led residents to believe. Let me see how much more is in this. I'm going to skip over some of this because I want to get to the other one. Let me see here. Okay, so they talk about the EPA. It's like, okay, I'm going to give you this link. You can read the rest of it. It's the way sometimes. Let's see. Just 1 second here. I want to get this. Oh, okay. See, this is what I want to get to. Let's go to the last paragraph here. You can read the rest of this here. Let's go to the last paragraph. The fish is, quote, an indicator that something else is wrong, end quote, said Vicki Blazer, biologist with the U.S. Geological Survey. She said this in support of stronger pesticide reporting. Because in here they talk about pesticides, things like this, right? Let me just back up 2 paragraphs. The pesticide reporting rule stood to create a trove of data that scientists could draw from for studies on human and animal health, supporters said. Researchers said it would help focus research on chemical, quote-unquote, hotspots, the exact moment high concentrations of pesticides hit waters where vulnerable young fish are growing. Okay? Vicki Blazer said this at the time of the legislation in March 2013. But the requirement was amended after growers said the rule would be a major financial burden, and the State Department of Agriculture said it would cost $1.5 million for new employees to collect and input data. State lawmakers instead passed legislation to create a fund that would one day pay for mandatory pesticide reporting. Then Governor of Maryland, Governor Martin O'Malley, signed the legislation in May. Okay? So, and once this is dealing with politics also. This deals with how politics impacts every aspect of your life, from the water you drink to the air you breathe to the food you eat to the fish you eat, and whether they have male eggs and female eggs, whatever it is. Okay? But the article concludes with this last paragraph. The fish is, quote, an indicator that something else is wrong, end quote, Vicki Blazer said, biologist with the U.S. Geological Survey. She said this in support of stronger pesticide reporting. Quote, what are these things doing to the natural environment? If we find these things in wild organisms, there's a good chance they're also affecting people, end quote. If we find these things in wild organisms, there's a good chance they're also affecting people, end quote. So we're talking about endocrine disruptors. And so in the study, the sister study that dealt with permanent hair dye and chemical relaxers, and a possible link between that and African American women having high rates of breast cancer, or leading to breast cancer in African American women, They talked about endocrine disruptors. Okay, so read this article here. This is from 2014, February 2014. As more male bass switch sex, a strange fish story expands. This is from Washington Post by Daryl Fears, F-E-A-R-S, from the Health and Science section of the Washington Post. All right. So I'm going to go to this next article. This is from 2016 from National Geographic about the same thing. Okay, let's look at this. Name of this article is Why Are These Male Fish Growing Eggs? That's a good question. Why are these male fish growing eggs? This is from February 3rd, 2016. This is 2 years after the article from the Washington Post. Fish and wildlife refuges. Fish and wildlife refuge are feminized, probably by hormone skewing pollution. What does this portend for the health of all creatures and people? So they're looking at Swanton, Vermont silver maples, and they say lanky and bare stand on the frozen pond plain at the Missaquoi National Wildlife Refuge. Two sets of tracks, fox and mouse, weave across the snowy surface of the river, which is home to bass, bass fish, muskrats, and beavers. In the fall, more than 20,000 migrating ducks will converge here, and in the summer, one of the refuge's rarest species, spiny soft-shelled turtles, will bask and forage on its gravelly beaches and sandbars. Okay, scientists from the U.S. Fish and Wildlife Service and the U.S. Geological Survey studied fish in 19 national wildlife refuges in the U.S. Northeast, including Missaquoi. Their conclusion: an astonishing 60 to 100% of all the male smallmouth bass fish they examined had female egg cells growing in their testes. An astonishing 60 to 100% of all of the male smallmouth bass fish that they examined had female eggs growing in their testes. Now, just for people who ain't familiar with fish, male fish are not supposed to have female eggs. They ain't supposed to grow female eggs. Now, when you study this, they say that the female eggs were infertile, meaning that the female eggs that the male fish had were not eggs that would actually hatch other fish. But, this is not supposed to happen. Scientists call this condition intersex. And while its exact causes are unknown, it's been linked to man-made environmental chemicals that mimic or block sex hormones. Over the past decade, feminized male fish have been discovered in 37 species in lakes and rivers throughout North America, Europe, and other parts of the world. Experts say the new discovery in protected wildlife refuges is worrisome because it suggests that pollution may be more pervasive than previously thought. Now, Luke Iwanowicz is a researcher with the U.S. Geological Survey. He's a fish researcher with the U.S. Geological Survey. He said, quote, "There are no truly untouched areas. I think the takeaway here is that everything we do, everything we use or put on the land ends up in the water at some point." Okay? And he's based in West Virginia. And he led this wildlife refuge study. The article goes on to say what scientists don't know is what these feminized fish portend for the health of these species, for the environment, and perhaps for humans too. So they quote Vicky Blazer here again. So the article from 2014 from Washington Post quoted Vicky Blazer, who's a biologist with the U.S. Geological Survey. They quote her again here in 2016. Vicky Blazer said, quote, when fish are getting intersex, it's probably a good indication that something is wrong in the environment. Now, I could come to that conclusion. I took biology. I'm not a biologist. She's a biologist, and she said that. Okay? She said, quote, when fish are getting intersex, it's probably a good indication that something is wrong in the environment. Female eggs and male testes. Intersex males don't look outwardly different than normal males. In fact, federal scientists uncovered the condition by accident in the Chesapeake Bay watershed in 2003. They were conducting a post-mortem examination to determine the causes of a smallmouth bass die-off. A smallmouth bass die-off. When they found male fish with female egg cells in their testes. In a follow-up study, they found these intersex conditions in more than 3/4 of male smallmouth bass fish caught in parts of Shenandoah and Potomac rivers in Virginia and West Virginia. So they go, in the article, they go on to say that, let me see here, some species of fish including, okay, so they're going to say gender in fish is not always straightforward. Some species of fish, including clownfish, grouper, and gobies, I guess it's pronounced, G-O-B-I-E-S, are hermaphrodites, meaning they naturally have both male and female sex organs. They are born with the ability to change their gender. It's a special adaptation that some species have evolved to improve their chances at reproducing. Intersex fish, however, are different. It happens in species of fish that are not hermaphroditic, and it doesn't help with reproduction. In severe cases, it can make fish sterile. Now, Don Tillett, Tillillitt, is a toxicologist with the U.S. Geological Survey. Don Tillett said, quote, intersex definitely is not normal, end quote. The presence of female eggs in male testes indicates some kind of hormonal confusion. Scientists call this phenomenon endocrine disruption. Endocrine disruption. Mounting evidence suggests that intersex in fish may be the result of exposure to contaminants that encompass a wide range of natural and synthetic chemicals, including pharmaceuticals, pesticides, and personal care products. Pharmaceuticals, pesticides, and personal care products. Within those personal care products, that will probably include hair relaxers, permanent hair dyes. The article from the National Geographic from February 2016 goes on to say, some chemicals of concern include estrogen from birth control pills, the plasticizer, bisphenol A. So there was a lot of talk about BPA, bisphenol A. And bisphenol A is used in, back then was used in plastics. And how the chemicals in the plastics, for instance, it was, if I remember correctly, it was used in, one of the plastics it was used in was baby bottles. So you put the formula in the baby bottle or breast milk in the baby bottle. That was one of the things it was in. And so they were talking about, there was concerns about that chemical in the plastic leaching into the milk, okay, and children drinking it, or in any plastic. chemical in the plastic, like when bottled water. Bottled water, when it's at high temperatures, like if you leave bottled water in the car in a hot summer day, things like this, with various plastics, there was concern that when plastics are exposed to heat, it can cause the chemical bisphenol A in the plastic to leach into the liquid that's in the bottle, what have you, and you drink the liquid, you ingest the chemical like that, which was a endocrine disruptor. All right, so let's see, where do we leave off here? Mounting evidence suggests that intersex fish may be the result of exposure to contaminants that encompass a wide range of natural and synthetic chemicals, including pharmaceuticals, pesticides, and personal care products. Some chemicals of concern include estrogens from birth control pills, bisphenol A, and the herbicide atrazine. These chemicals can mimic and in some cases interrupt a body's normal hormonal process, which once again, these are endocrine disruptors, right? So let's look at the Environmental Protection Agency. I'm going to give you a link to the EPA because they have a page. The Environmental Protection Agency is a U.S. government entity. It was created in 1970s by under the Richard Nixon administration, the Environmental Protection Agency. And then I'm going to give you a link to an article from WebMD, because I have an article here from WebMD that deals with the endocrine system and glands of the human body. Okay, and it breaks this down and it deals with endocrine disruptors as well. And it talks about the endocrine system functions. Make hormones that control your moods, growth and development, metabolism, organs, and reproduction. The endocrine system also controls how your hormones are released. It sends those hormones into your bloodstream so they can travel to other parts of the body as well. So we have the pituitary gland, pineal gland, thyroid gland, thymus, adrenal gland, pancreas, ovaries, testicles, etc. This is all dealing with the endocrine system. Okay. All right, so if we look at this, so that's from WebMD. Let me give you the link here from WebMD because I pulled this up here dealing with the endocrine system. Let's see here. Let me give you this link. How's everybody doing? Everybody share this broadcast on your Facebook page. Invite your friends to tune in as well. This is some deep information. So we have to be careful about not just what we eat, but also the chemicals we put on our body, what we put in our hair, what we put on our skin, okay? Because your skin is your largest organ. Your skin is the largest organ in your body, and your skin, everything you put on there, your body absorbs, okay? All right, let's see here. Okay, so that's from WebMD. Let's look at this from the EPA, Environmental Protection Agency. So they have a page here, endocrine disruption. What is endocrine disruption? What are concerns regarding endocrine disruptors? It says in the last 2 decades, there has been a growing awareness of the possible adverse effects in humans and wildlife from exposure to chemicals that can interfere with the endocrine system. These effects can include developmental malformations, interference with reproduction, increased cancer risk, and disturbances in the immune and nervous system function. Clear evidence exists that some chemicals cause these effects in wildlife, but limited evidence exists for the potential of chemicals to cause these effects in humans at environmental exposure levels. Very few chemicals have been tested for their potential to interfere with the endocrine system. Current standard test methods do not provide adequate data to identify potential endocrine disruptors or to assess their risk to humans and wildlife, okay, according to the EPA. You can check out the rest. It's just, so it goes on to say, how can chemicals disrupt the endocrine system? Disruption of the endocrine system can occur in various ways. Some chemicals mimic a natural hormone, fooling the body into over-responding to the stimulus. Okay? For example, a growth hormone that results in increased muscle mass, or responding at inappropriate times, producing insulin when it is not needed. Other endocrine disruptors block the effects of a hormone from certain receptors, for instance, growth hormones required for normal development. Still others directly stimulate or inhibit the endocrine system and cause over-reproduction or under-reproduction of hormones, okay, as in an over or underactive thyroid. Certain drugs are used to intentionally cause some of these effects, such as birth control pills. In many situations involving environmental chemicals, however, an endocrine effect is not desirable. Okay, so let me give you this. Okay, you can read the rest of this because there's a lot more information here, but you get the idea. This is from the EPA, Environmental Protection Agency. Okay, so check this out also. How's everybody doing? Everybody share this broadcast on your Facebook page. Also, if you like this type of information, you can donate to the African History Network, paypal.me/the AHN Show, paypal.me/the AHN Show, and also at our website, AfricanHistoryNetwork.com, AfricanHistoryNetwork.com. It helps us keep doing the research. Also, not to travel out of town and cover expenses, etc. Okay, let's continue here. I'm going to give you the link to WebMD dealing with the endocrine system and glands of the human body as well. A lot of good information there. Also, you know, if you have children that like are in biology and biology classes, you know, it's a lot easier today than it was when I was taking biology. We didn't have WebMD, we didn't have the internet, things like that. You know, a lot of this stuff you can just go online and get an education. You know, and I would have gotten A's. I got A's in chemistry. I got, I think, B's in biology. I would have done even better in biology if we had stuff like WebMD, things like that when I was in school. And then lastly, let's see, okay, so we got that. It's WebMD. And there was one other article, okay, we got that one. One other article from the EPA, I think. Let's see here. For the EPA, there are 2 pages that I looked at. One is dealing with endocrine disruption, and the other is dealing with the endocrine system. Okay, so we'll give you the second one as well. You can check all that stuff out. And they talk about estrogen, testosterone, all these things. All right. So this is all. These are all things that we have to be aware of. Okay, and luckily, you know, there is more and more African American women are choosing to wear natural hairstyles, right? That's good. But I think there's more than one reason why we should gravitate towards that, okay? And also, at the same time, we're also dealing with standards of beauty, okay? Stand by. Looks like this is pixelating, it's breaking up a little bit. Okay, here we go. Okay, that's another one from the EPA. So, you know, we have a confluence of things. We have trying to acquiesce to European standards of beauty, African American men and women, because you have some brothers who don't want their women to have natural hair and put pressure on their women to dye their hair blonde for whatever reason. For example, Braxton's Family Values, Tamar Braxton. Tamar Braxton was on a TV show. And I read articles about this. Tamar Braxton was on a TV show, and she talked about, we know that she is getting a divorce or got a divorce from her husband, Vincent Herbert. She talked about how she talked about how she wore blonde wigs, and I think at some point got her hair dyed blonde. But she said because Vincent liked blonde hair, and she did it to please him. Okay, so then you have to, you know, you have to sit back and ask the question. So this is an example of what I'm talking about. We both have been, African American men and women, we have both been negatively impacted by European standards of beauty. And then we'll put pressure on each other to acquiesce to those European standards of beauty. Okay? So, you know, I talk about how we're all going through a 12-step process trying to recover from the side effects of white supremacy and racism. You know, we're all going through a 12-step process, okay, trying to recover from the side effects of white supremacy and racism. So this is why, you know, something like Zozie Tunzi becoming Miss Universe is so monumental. Not because we need white validation, but because it's a statement. She's the queen of the universe, so to speak. It's a statement. And then we know the universe is black. If you don't believe me, at nighttime, go outside, look up in the sky, and tell me what color you see. We know that African women are the mothers of civilization. And then also now, Miss USA, Miss Teen USA, and Miss America, and Miss Universe are all black women. So all the stars are lining up on that one right there. I mean, that's deep. All right, let's see. Let's look at some of your comments here. Okay, we got SB. We've got, let's see, what else we have here? Linda. How's everybody doing? Okay, Anthony, Osei, Bomani. Hey, I'll be speaking at the Kwanzaa celebration at the Charles H. Wright Museum of African American History. That is on December 27th. Okay, is that a Friday? That's a Friday, December 27th. The event is 6 p.m. to 8 p.m. Okay, 6 p.m. to 8 p.m. Malcolm X Grassroots Movement invited me to speak once again. Brother Bomani is with the Malcolm X Grassroots Movement. So it's free and open to the public. Come on out. My presentation is going to blow people away once again. And the Charles H. Wright Museum is celebrating Kwanzaa all 7 days, December 26th through January the 1st. It's free and open to the public. Visit their website, theright.org, W-R-I-G-H-T, theright.org for more information. We'll have it on our website also, AfricanHistoryNetwork.com. I'm also speaking at St. Francis Church. I do speak at churches for those that don't know. I'll be speaking at St. Francis Church on the it's at the 29th, Sunday, December 29th. Their Kwanzaa event is 3 p.m. to 7 p.m. That is on the fourth day of Kwanzaa, Ujamaa, which deals with cooperative economics. St. Francis Church is located at 7021 West Warren Avenue in Detroit. 7021 West Warren Avenue in Detroit. It's free and open to the public. I'll be speaking there and blow people away once again. They usually have me speak at the Kwanzaa celebration. So shout out to Deacon McConicle, who asked me to come speak. And they're going to have African drumming, African dance. Calvin Mann will be speaking as well. This is Black Business Detroit presents a day of Ujamaa, collective work and responsibility. So we have the flyer on our Facebook fan page, the African History Network. We'll put this on our website also, AfricanHistoryNetwork.com, AfricanHistoryNetwork.com. We'll put it there as well. And then my latest DVD bundle pack, the 6 DVD bundle pack, Black Migration 1619 to 2019. That is available right now at AfricanHistoryNetwork.com. We have it on DVD and digital download format. Black Migration 1619 to 2019 includes 6 of my latest presentations, including Black Migrations, 6 Principles of Political Self-Defense, understanding how laws and policies impact the economic conditions of African Americans. Black Migrations deals with this 400th year anniversary of August 20th, 1619 in Virginia at Point Comfort. But when those 29 Africans come in on the White Line slave ship, the White Line pirate ship. But it also deals with 1526 because the Spanish were taking Africans into the territory called South Carolina 93 years before 1619. And it also deals with the African presence in this country going back tens of thousands of years, because we were here before Native Americans came into existence as well. So if you read the book, The First Americans Were Africans, Documented Evidence, by Dr. David Imhotep, he deals with that. Okay? And his new book should either be out December 2019 or January 2020, because I interviewed him back on August 21st, 2019. And his book deals with, thoroughly documents the African presence in North, Central, and South America going back at least 56,000 years ago. in this land here we call the United States of America, going back at least 51,700 years ago. Okay. All right. So be sure to listen to the African History Network show Sundays, 9 p.m. to 11 p.m. Eastern Standard Time on 9:10 a.m. Superstation WFDF in Detroit. We also broadcast here on Facebook Live when I do the show live. And African American business owners, email us at customerservice@africanhistorynetwork.com. Customer service at AfricanHistoryNetwork.com. We'll let you know how you can advertise with us. And also, we take your 30-second, 60-second commercial and put it to the audio podcast of our broadcast I do throughout the week, as well as our Sunday night show as well. And we're on 8 different audio podcast platforms. We're on Stitcher, Castbox, FM Player, TuneIn, Blog Talk Radio, iTunes, etc. If you're looking to get a new or used car, visit Car Marshall. Click on the link below, and Car Marshall will help you find and negotiate buying a vehicle. They have over 100,000 new or used cars from dealers. Car Marshall, you shop, we negotiate. You shop, we negotiate. All right, guys, look, hey, we have to get out of here. Remember, at the African History Network, we focus on educating, empowering, and inspiring people of African descent throughout the diaspora and around the world, because right knowledge corrects wrong behavior. What you do for yourself, what you do to yourself, and what you allow other people to do to you and get away with is based upon what you think about yourself. What you think about yourself is based upon what you have been taught about yourself. What you've been taught about yourself is based upon everything you've read, heard, and seen about yourself. Remember, right knowledge corrects wrong behavior. It's not over till we win. Wakanda forever. We'll talk to you next time. Peace.